Hey, how's it going? This is Ross from Utility Belt Effects, and today I'm going to be talking about my new bass. This is an instrument that I've been working on for a number of months now, and I'm really stoked with how it turned out. So in this video, I thought I'd just talk about its specs and go through all the different tones that I can get between its pickup combinations and EQ controls. So stick around. I'm going to get really nerdy, and hopefully you're into that. So this is obviously inspired by a Fender jazz bass. The body and the neck are both Warmoth. The body is a chambered alder body. They have like a proprietary chambering system that they do. This body was only 3 pounds, 10 ounces, so it was super light, probably lighter than most guitar bodies even. And I had them route a Music Man humbucker in the bridge in what they call their sweet spot, which is presumably where it would be on an actual Music Man Stingray bass, but this is just the same position in a jazz bass body. So I got the body from Warmoth, and then I sent it to our favorite bass guru, Mr. Alan Corona in San Diego, and he routed this reverse P-bass pickup in the Hoppus position. So if you don't know, Alan has built a number of instruments for Mark Hoppus, including the bass Gin, which Mark used on the last Blink album, One More Time. So I sent it right to him and I said, Alan, can you please just give me the same pickup routing, same spot, the reverse P, which maybe you can get from Warmoth. I don't know. I didn't even ask. I wanted the dude who actually does it to do it on my bass. So I sent it to Alan, and he routed the P bass pickup for me, sent it back to me, and then I sent the body off to MJT Guitars, who is a painting company in Missouri. They actually painted, here I'll grab it. Maybe you've seen my Strat in a couple of videos. I built this guitar over 10 years ago in 2014, and this is an MJT painted Strat. So I've had this, they do the point is they do nitrocellulose finishing, which you can't get from Warmoth, and only really like the Fender custom shop, I think, does nitrocellulose. So if you don't know, nitrocellulose is how Fender used to paint bodies back in the 50s and 60s. It's a much thinner, more brittle paint, but it allows the wood to breathe better and therefore hopefully sound better. I'm actually more interested in just kind of like the way that it wears over a number of years. I've had this instrument for about 10 years and it has a lot of really cool wear. You can see like the belt buckle wear there, and then the finish like checks in a really unique way. So when it came time to have another instrument made, I of course sent it to MJT, and I was really set on this like midnight blue metallic finish. And I know that they've done it before, so I asked them, hey, could you still do midnight blue metallic? I even sent them some color samples that I've seen on actual Fenders that have used it. And they're like, yeah, we can do that, no problem. I think their website quotes about 10 to 16 weeks for a paint job, but I think they got it done in about 9, which is sooner than their website says, but it was still really, it was such a long wait. But they did an awesome job. It's so dark. It's only really blue when direct light hits it, which is exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to almost feel black with like a suggestion of blue, if you will. But it's super metallic, and only when the light hits it can you tell it's blue. The neck is also Warmoth. It is their jazz bass neck with the slimmer 1.5-inch nut. It's roasted maple, which is just an awesome feeling wood for necks. And the fretboard is ebony with no inlays. I actually did like their unique choice fretboard selection, where you can go through a couple actual fretboards and see the exact wood that you're going to get. And I like this one because it was really dark, and there was a little bit of figuring throughout. No inlays, just the side dot inlays, which I really like. I knew I wanted like a super minimalist looking bass, kind of monochromatic. So I was already envisioning all black hardware, and I thought the roasted maple with black hardware up top would look really sick. I did the decal myself. I don't know if you follow my Instagram, but it was quite the ordeal, and it was really keeping me busy while the body was being finished. I was really focusing on this headstock decal, which I had to do twice. The first time I did it, it came out pretty good, and then after 2 weeks of curing, I started polishing it, and I had a little accident, and I cut through the clear coat into the decal and totally destroyed it, and I had to start over. It was so upsetting. But I redid it, and it's even better. I opted for the big 1970s jazz bass logo, since the bass is so like understated, monochromatic, that I thought the larger jazz bass logo would look better up top, since it's a little bit of flair somewhere on the bass, since everything else is like dark blue and black and black and dark blue and black. So there's a little bit of pop. These are Hipshot lightweight tuners. Very, very scary installing those. Probably the scariest part of this whole build, because I don't know if you know, but roasted maple is really brittle. Because you extract all the moisture from the wood becomes harder, but it also becomes more brittle, and it's more prone to cracking. So you have to be really careful when you're drilling into roasted maple. So what I did was I bought all new drill bits for my Makita drill, and I went very slow, and I used my calipers to determine the exact size of the holes that I needed to make. And I also used screw wax. Shout out to screw wax for when you're screwing into roasted maple so that you don't crack the wood. So I used that for the tuners, and I used that when I was installing the neck onto the actual body. I used screw wax on the screws as it's going into the roasted maple back there. So that was really harrowing. I was really sweaty installing these tuners, but I'm super stoked that came out okay, and I did not crack the headstock. Okay, electronics, let's talk about them. I knew I wanted this bass to be kind of like a best of both worlds instrument, where I could do the kind of fat, punchy P bass, hoppus tone in the neck if I'm using a pick, or I'm really into fingerstyle playing. I mean, a lot of my favorite bass players are fingerstyle dudes, like Chris Wolstenholme from Muse and Tim Comerford from Rage Against the Machine. I mean, the Stingray pickup also sounds great with a pick as well, but for fingerstyle playing, I just really like the position that it's in. My jazz bass, I hate the pickup, the pickup placement. I mean, the bridge pickup is too far back, and it's really tight and kind of painful, and the neck pickup is like too far up, and it doesn't really sound good when you're anchoring on it. So this pickup is just like the perfect anchoring position, I can really like dig my thumb in and feel secure and get some really articulate fingerstyle tones that I'll demonstrate in a little bit. So that was my thinking. It was kind of like Hoppus up front and Tim Comerford, Rage Against the Machine in the rear. Or maybe that's the rear and that's the front. I've never really understood. I mean, they're really radically different sounding pickups, so you can get a wide range of tones from using either or kind of both at the same time. This is an active bass, which I've decided to experiment with for the first time. This is an Aguilar OBP3 preamp, and you can wire it for 9 volts or 18 volts. Obviously, with the 2 batteries, I've decided to wire it 18 volts, which gives you a little bit more headroom. It's a little bit cleaner and louder than 9-volt operation. The controls are as follows. Master volume, so just, all the way up, all the way down, or somewhere in between. Master volume for the whole bass. Next knob is the pickup blend. All the way up is the P bass. All the way down is the Music Man bass. And there's a notch in the middle, so you always know when you're 50-50. The Music Man pickups feels and sounds a little bit louder than the P bass pickup, so what I like to do if I'm going for like a blend is go 50-50 and then actually go a little bit toward the P bass pickup, and that feels like a really solid blend. The next knob is mid-range, boost, or cut. The mid-range frequency is centered at 800 hertz, but if you pull up on the knob, it drops to 400 hertz, and you can boost or cut there. And then last, we have a stacked bass and treble knob. You can boost or cut either one. The bass frequency is super low. I think it's at like 40 hertz, which is crazy low. So as soon as you start boosting the bass, you get really, really gnarly, like low end. So I haven't been going too crazy with that, but the treble control is really, really musical. I think it's around 8K. I'd have to double check. 4K, 6K, or 8K, somewhere around there. Like really, really, really present, airy frequency. It sounds awesome. You can get pretty extreme with it, and it still sounds nice and not harsh. And lastly, the master volume, if you pull up on it, it bypasses the entire active preamp, and it's just the pickups going into the output jack. And so you don't have to, if the battery dies or something, or if you just want a passive tone, you can always pull up on the master knob and master volume knob, and you are in passive mode. Those are the electronics. I have a Hipshot brass bridge, super heavy, gnarly, chunky bridge. I love brass bridges on bass. They sound awesome. String through body, black ferrules, of course, to match the black, everything else. I think that is about it. Old school bass line covers for purely nostalgia reasons and vibes, of course. All right, let's go through some tones. I've got it plugged into my audio interface going into the Ampeg SVT suite, and I'm in the Heritage 50th Anniversary SVT bass amp. Here is the reverse P bass pickup, the Seymour Duncan quarter pounders, routed by Alan Corona, of course, of San Diego. This chambered body has so much resonance and sustain. It's crazy. It's my first time having a chambered solid body, instrument. It's not designed to be like a hollow body, like a 335. It's so resonant and loud, and it feels so good, and it just sustains forever, I didn't even tune this thing. I hope it's in tune. Oh, what am I doing? It's in tune. Woo! Close call. So that was the P bass. Let me just go all the way down to the Music Man humbucker. By the way, this is the ceramic model, which I think they call like their 90s model, as opposed to the Alnico one, which is a little bit warmer and fatter. This one is like a little more grindy and brighty, which is what I wanted for this. Anyway, let me, I'll play a note and then I'll go down to the Music Man humbucker. So it has that really distinct, like kind of flat and flappy, but bright and twangy kind of bass tone, as opposed to the P bass, which is very piano-like and punchy. They're very, very different sounding. Here's a 50-50 in the middle. you're getting a little bit of that P bass, like kind of fat punchiness in. And if I go a little bit past 50-50, that's where you can really hear the P bass start to add to the overall blend, you know? Right there. So that's like 55-45 or 60-40, whatever, you know, P bass to Music Man. Anyway, so the Music Man, this is where the EQ controls really start to come into play, because typically when you're using the Music Man bass, you also use the EQ controls that are on board. So let's start to go into those a little bit. The mid-range, if it's boosting 400 hertz, sounds like this. Here's like 50% boosted. 100. Here's the P bass with that boosted. Back to normal. And a cut. And then if I pull it up, it's 400 hertz instead of 800. It's more like the lower mids, you know, it's very cheeky and kind of bloated sounding. Which you might not want to boost, but it does sound good when you cut it, because you're getting rid of some of that extra weight. So that's the mid-range control, and now let's go to the bass and treble. Here's a tiny bit of bass boost, okay? You might need headphones on to hear this, but it's so low that it's boosting 40 hertz, but I'm sure it's a wide bell, so it's like subsonic frequencies and all the way up to like 80 and 100 hertz. So it's really, really a lot of body and bass and low end, you know? And that's a tiny bit. Off, and I'll bring it up slow. Just kind of an alarming amount of low ends. Not necessarily usable in every scenario, but maybe in some. And then the treble, which I think is really awesome and musical sounding. Pretty bright with a pick, but with your fingers, maybe a little bass to combat the super brightness. Reset them. Let me reset my mind because I have no idea what I'm talking about anymore. All right, let's turn some distortion on with the Scully fuzz. How about that? Here's the Music Man pickup, which Brian Gibson from Lightning Bolt uses in his bass in his crazy two-piece noise rock band.